Episode 5. Brian King, ADHD and Asperger's, a recipe for entrepreneurs' success.
Welcome to the Rise to Success podcast, inspiring you to create a successful business on your terms. Join money coach Meredith Bissiker and her expert guests every Monday and Thursday to get the tools you need to help you create your ideal business and life. Now, here's your host, Meredith.
Welcome to this episode featuring Brian R. King, MSW. He's a success coach to people with ADHD and dyslexia who teaches his clients how to discover the calm and focus they need. That's key to discovering their zone of genius. He's been inspiring his audience for over 20 years with his story of resilience in the face of growing up with ADHD and dyslexia, surviving cancer at 18, and now living with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. He's the father of 3 sons with ADHD and Asperger's, and he's someone you must get to know. I wanted to share Brian's brilliance on the topics of unique abilities in spite of the labels that Brian, his children, and countless others have, because this topic is near and dear to my own heart. I have 2 girls, and my youngest is diagnosed with sensory processing disorder and anxiety. We have many fun times with her, but when she's in a stretch of anxiety and transition, for instance, when she starts a new school year, our home life is turned upside down and we spend most of our time and energy trying to ease her anxiety. So for those of you listening who are entrepreneurs with a labeled condition or who have a family member who requires extra support from you, this is the episode for you to listen to. Brian talks about how Facebook is the perfect place to show off your quirks, and he talks about how his children, who also have ADHD and Asperger's, inspire him every day to keep going, even on exceptionally challenging days. You can connect with Brian at www.brianraymondking.com. Before we meet Brian, I'll remind you that you have access to a free version of my online course for entrepreneurs who feel challenged saying their prices out loud and who feel guilty about charging for their good work. It's called Stop Giving It Away, Get Paid, and you can get access to it by visiting www.meredithbissiker.com/get-paid. Okay, it is time to meet Brian King. Welcome, Brian, to the Rise to Success podcast.
Thank you, Meredith. It is an absolute joy to be here.
I'm so excited to have you here. I've known you for, I'd say, a number of months now, if not almost a year, and I knew I had to have you on this podcast. You are a source of inspiration for me, and I'm sure you're a source of inspiration for many people. And as our audience listens to this podcast, they're going to understand why. So tell us a bit about yourself and your business.
Well, myself, I've had a very bumpy ride in this life. I grew up with undiagnosed ADHD and dyslexia. My graduation present from high school was stage 3 testicular cancer. I was able to rebound from that. I got married, had 3 boys, all of whom have Asperger's, which is a form of autism, and ADHD. And a couple years ago, after a lifelong experience of joint pain and easy muscle pulls and so on, I was diagnosed with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. Mm-hmm. And that is a genetic connective tissue disorder. So my ligaments, my tendons, my muscles are too slack. You know, they don't hold my body up very well. They tear easily. So I'm exhausted all the time. I'm on a lot of pain meds. I'm moving closer and closer to needing a wheelchair all the time. And as it turns out, my younger 2 boys have the EDS as well. So that's been, my life story in a nutshell. And this is what I've done with it. Okay. What I've learned is that, suffering is the one common element to the human experience that connects us all. Mm-hmm. And the one thing we can do for each other is show each other the way beyond the suffering. So all of the different things that I've experienced and been able to bounce forward from, I have created a coaching business or a reputation for having resilience, for having very positive, proactive approaches to dealing with the challenges in your life. But as far as my coaching goes, I specifically focus on the people that have ADHD and dyslexia, since that's one of the foremost issues that I deal with, especially in raising my boys.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So that's as most entrepreneurs have, we have specific niches, but that to me seems rather unique, coaching ADHD clients. So tell us a bit more about your clients. Who is there aside from the ADHD and the dyslexia that's arising for them, is there another commonality or a few that you attract to your work?
I think that the people that are attracted to my work are the ones that don't want to be bound by any kind of label that they've assigned to themselves or has been assigned to them. You know, I've got people in my Facebook following that have nothing to do with my niche, but they see that what I talk about and how I talk about it generalizes to them. You know, they may have MS, they may be dealing with cancer presently or something else, and they just see me as somebody that doesn't stay down once I'm knocked down. And they like how I describe my approach to life. I do frequent videos, I do inspirational posts and so on. And they're attracted to that mindset as something that they really need in their life.
Yeah. And I don't have ADHD or dyslexia, but I do suffer from migraines. And I have a little girl who we're still, doing some investigation, trying to find out what's happening with her. And at this point, it appears that she has sensory processing disorder, anxiety. We're trying to figure out why. And your posts speak to me. You know, I don't have a condition that takes me to the same point that you go to almost on a daily basis, if not weekly. But I can still relate to, okay, today is just a day I spend in bed. There's nothing I can do about it. So how do you get yourself through those days where you are knocked down and well, I've actually seen you post that you've just done work from bed, but how about on the days where you can't even do that? How do you get yourself through that without beating yourself up?
Well, ironically, yesterday was one of those days. And here's the thing. There are times where I do beat myself up. Okay. But the important thing to acknowledge in those moments is that you don't want to stay there.
Yes.
You know, it's like somebody that they start thinking negatively and then they allow themselves to ride that train. And the next thing you know, the sky is falling and the earth is imploding.
Yes.
You know, they catastrophize. So when I start getting myself in that funk, I begin thinking, okay, this is not the experience I want to have. What resources do I have available? The most immediate one is I've been studying, Zen Buddhist meditation for 20 years. So the first thing I go to is my breath and getting centered and tuning into my senses and seeing what can I hear? My kids are laughing. There are birds outside, and tune into the things that just fill me up and make me smile. If there's a lot of pain going on that day and it's a little bit harder, I will talk to my wife. She's just an amazing ally in all of this.
Excellent.
It's almost like she has this ready-made script of exactly what to say to me. Because last night was one of those. Because I'll disclose something now that I haven't disclosed publicly. Is one thing I've realized because of how my condition's declining, I have to file for disability because I can't do the full-time schedule anymore. But that's not going to stop me. One thing I was working on before we got on the call here is I'm putting all of my videos and all of my content into a membership site so that I can do everything virtually. And I can do it from my iPad. I can do it from my phone. I can do it laying in bed. So I can still serve people, even though it's not the one-on-one, really energy-intensive kind of work.
Yes. Just continue serving.
Right.
What the heck keeps driving you to do this?
Because my kids are watching me. And they have the same challenges that I do in many ways. And I don't want them to see that there is nothing for them in life with their challenges. I want them to see that, and this is one of my core beliefs, that any challenge thrown your way is an opportunity to be resourceful. To ask, what what resources, what skills, what knowledge is out there for me that can help me get the results I want, regardless of my challenges. And as long as they're watching me, I'm not going to let them see a quitter.
Children have a way of inspiring.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So what would you say to someone who's listening to this interview right now who has ADHD or dyslexia or another condition that is quite limiting, and they're thinking, well, that's great for you. You've got something special that pushes you through. What would you say to them when you know that everybody has this not same opportunity, but if they put their mind to it? Maybe I'm putting words into your mouth here, but what would you say to someone who is just struggling but wants to move forward, has a vision?
Well, one thing I tell them is they need to put a microscope on their belief system. Because being raised in the public school system, we are treated according to our label.
Mm-hmm.
So the people, the teachers, well-meaning people, will treat us according to their expectations of what we can't do, what they believe is possible for us based on their own limited stereotypical thinking. Again, they're not bad people.
Mm-hmm.
They just get caught up in the same labeling muck that everybody else does. And because we trust them as authorities, we begin to take that into our own belief system and think, I have this label, therefore I can't. When the reality is, I can't do it according to the status quo paradigm. Okay? So I need to unlearn all that garbage and realize that our world is one of innovation.
Yes.
And that I can find unique ways to deliver the goods, and then I can find a way to position myself and market myself. Because the reality is this, Meredith. With my learning difficulties and my physical challenge, I am unemployable in the private sector. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
But when I package my strengths in a way that puts them first and foremost saying, I'm awesome at this, I can solve these problems, here's my rate, and then I go after the people that can benefit from this, boom, I got a business.
That's right. Resourcefulness.
Yes.
Yes. And we do, in our culture, we do get stuck in these paradigms. We do, even myself, I will look at how someone else has done something and I think, well, I can do that. And then try to follow that procedure and think, oh, that didn't quite work out for me. That's because we all have different circumstances. It's not a puzzle that we can all piece together.
You're absolutely right. And I have never found one of those courses that ever worked for me.
Mm-hmm.
Doing it somebody else's way, because my brain is too quirky.
Yeah.
I've got to find the way that it works and the way that it solves problems, and then look for the people who like that approach.
Yes.
And one of the best ways, especially now with Facebook Live, the live video streaming, you can put yourself out there in all of your eccentricity and see who is attracted to that. So they will find you in many ways.
That is key. And new entrepreneurs especially will fall into that comparison trap. Oh, I'm not as handsome or as pretty. I'm not as smart. I don't have the money, et cetera, et cetera. But even if we did exactly what that other person did, it's very unlikely we'll attract the same people, because we have different personalities, different characteristics. Sometimes we might rub people the wrong way, or we might just attract somebody that other person won't attract. And I think that that's one of the key things to learn when we start off in business. It's such an important message. And Facebook Live is a fantastic tool for that.
I'm so glad you brought up the comparison game, because that is a dream killer.
Mm-hmm.
If you sit there and you say, oh, well, this person's smarter, or, they're obviously better, or they're savvy. And I used to do this, and it totally killed me.
Mm-hmm.
But this is how I reconciled that. Okay. If you look at each person as a puzzle piece, we're a different shape that we fit into the whole. There is no other piece in that puzzle that is just like us. We were not put here to be the other puzzle pieces. We were here to do our job. So when we look at somebody else that is really killing it, we can say, man, that person's doing their job really, really well.
Mm-hmm.
Now just wait until I figure out how to do my job.
Right.
Then I get to step into the puzzle and I get to be awesome. I don't have to worry about what everybody else is doing because that's not my job. I just have to focus on my job.
I love that. That is a fantastic way to put it. We all have our own job in this puzzle. Thank you for that, Brian.
Oh, yeah. And the more my health doesn't work to my favor and I start doing I can't do this and it's not fair.
Yes.
I just get back to, no. I'm just having to get more specific in what I put out there.
Yes.
Because the more that things seem to be taken away from me, the more I have to focus on what's left and make that much more of a laser beam.
Mm-hmm. So important. I mean, really, that's what successful entrepreneurs do anyway. It's just being forced on you in a different way, or brought to you in a different way. And yesterday, as I lay in bed with a migraine, that was one of the worst I've had in a long time. I didn't even want to say it's not fair. It didn't even, come to me to think that. It's just the way it is. And it's something I work around, something I prepare for every once in a while. And I try not to beat myself up for the hours I've lost that I could use working on something else or spending with my family, et cetera, et cetera. As soon as we get into that it's not fair mindset, then it's a slippery slope.
Yeah, the one thing that I've learned, and I told this to one of my mentors, because she got sick. She needed some surgery. And she's used to going out and going to networking meetings and being very, very social. And I think she had to be on bed rest for close to 6 weeks after her surgery. And it was killing her that she wasn't out there. She says, I feel like I'm lazy. I feel like I'm not doing anything. And the reframe I gave her is I said, no. Self-care isn't being lazy. Self-care is preparation.
Yes.
Because in order for you to be able to give, it's like the whole empty bucket metaphor. You can't fill somebody else's bucket if yours is empty. You have to refill it. Mm-hmm. So whenever you take care of yourself, you're preparing, you're rebooting so that the next effort that you put out there is at your best. Mm-hmm. So taking a rest, reading a book is not lazy, it's preparation.
Yes. Oh, it's so important. So important. And again, getting into that comparison game. In fact, I commented on something yesterday on Facebook where someone was saying, the entrepreneurs who are very successful are the ones who put in the hours and hours of work every single day and work their butt off. And I said, well, that's fine. But if you have kids, your story is different. If you have certain conditions, your story is different. So it's a tough one to just go. I would never go out there and say to anyone anymore that you need to work 7 days a week. In fact, I've never said this to anyone, but you need to work 7 days a week in order to make it work. No, there's such truth in just work smarter. Put in the effort. Don't work hard. Just put in the right effort.
Well, and a lot of that is also determined by what your definition of success is.
Yes.
There's a guy out there I absolutely love, Gary Vaynerchuk.
Yes.
And the guy works from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. 5 days a week. I have no interest in that.
Nor do I.
Even if I had the energy, I have no interest in that. So by being very clear on what success is, in my case, success is the impact I have on people.
Yes.
The money is nice. I pretty much, at this point in my life with my current condition, unless I come across some $1 million idea, having millions is probably not achievable at this moment. Mm-hmm. But making an impact in the world is.
Yes. Yes. And that's the heart of this podcast, Rise to Success, is what is your definition of success? And you told me a little earlier that success for you is also being able to live a fully human life. Mm-hmm. Tell us what you mean by that.
Well, that means being able to be vulnerable and put all of myself out there without self-criticism. Like, if I say this, people won't like me. Or if I say this, they're going to call me names. And just the realization that we all have fears, we all have sadness, we all have insecurities, and the people who pretend they don't are lying.
Yes.
Okay. And they can pretend, well, I've got it all together and I'm a peak performance person. Yeah. Okay. Whatever. If I'm having a lousy day, if I'm insecure about something, I put it out there for one very important reason, that a lot of people are looking for permission to be human.
Yes.
And if somebody models it, then they can do it.
Yes.
And that's what I had to explain to my wife, who's very introverted. She tends to be uncomfortable with how much I put out there. And she says, why do you do that? Why do you say so much? And I said, because people need to learn that it's okay to be who they are and not be ashamed of being vulnerable.
Yes. I was thinking about this yesterday as I was actually working in my garden, and I thought, how I haven't been in the entrepreneurial world for decades. It's only been the past 10 years or so. But I feel like, well, obviously with social media, there's such a shift in the way that we put ourselves out there, where it did feel like our image up until social media came out, our image should have been as entrepreneurs very crafted, very almost perfect. And I put my first video out probably about 1.5 years ago, and two very well-meaning friends of mine who are good friends of mine said, "Good job. By the way, I can give you a few tips on speaking if you want." And I thought, that quote about if you're not in the arena, don't. I'm totally paraphrasing here, but if you're not in the arena with me, don't criticize. And
that's something from I remember Brene Brown saying that.
She quotes it from someone else, and I'll try to bring it up and put it in the notes here. I've got the book right beside me, actually. But that could have stopped me. That could have stopped me from putting more videos out there. It could have just stopped me in my tracks completely in my business, because apparently I'm not perfect enough or good enough to be doing these videos. Luckily, I was seeing that everyone was putting themselves out there, being vulnerable.
Yeah, I don't know any human circumstance, any relationship where people are very closely connected and they're impacting each other, but there's somebody in the silence saying, you know what, that wasn't quite perfect. You pause too long in between these statements. And I'm thinking to myself, communication is not about perfection. It's about impact.
Right.
And I hardly shave anymore because my hands are so weak that I can't hold on to a razor. And that's the reality. So when I do my Facebook Live videos, I'm unshaven, I'm fuzzy. But you know what? They still get a bunch of shares. There's still a huge stream of comments because I'm giving value.
Yes.
They didn't say, well, I wouldn't watch more of your videos, but there's just one too many ums for me. I have yet to hear that.
I hope you don't. And if you do, well, then there's always the unfollow button for that person.
Yes.
If they'd like
Perfectionists need therapy. They don't need my videos.
That's right. That's right. Now, you say that the point in your life where you knew you weren't going to settle for mediocre was when your first son was diagnosed with a form of autism. What's the difference between that moment and your life leading up to that?
Well, my life leading up to that, I think I was pretty much on a hamster wheel. I graduated college and I got married and I had the job and I had to pay the bills, and I got kind of stuck in that routine for the longest time. And it wasn't until he started first grade and he just had an absolutely horrendous experience, almost daily panic attacks and meltdowns on field trips and turning over desks and trying to run out of the school because he was so anxious. And then seeing all of those people that just didn't get him and thought he needed to be medicated into submission, that they didn't need to do anything for him. And I realized that I have got to get to know this young man in a very conscious way. I need to really pay attention. I need to learn a lot so that I can guide him and be his advocate. So the hamster wheel just wouldn't do anymore. I had to be very, very conscious. And I realized that as challenging and as hard as it was going to be for me, I could not send him out into the world helpless. So I needed to do whatever I could to prepare him. And mediocrity just was not going to do.
He's very lucky to have you on his side.
Well, he and his brothers have definitely raised me into the dad they need me to be.
It happens that way.
Yeah.
It happens that way. And that's what I say about my youngest, excuse me, is that she was sent to us for a reason. And it could be that we're the right parents for her, or we have many lessons to learn from her. And when I can reframe it in that way, it takes a lot of the frustration out of the bad days that we can have with her.
And one thing you're going to learn if she has sensory processing disorder, and this is something that really is a big component of ADHD and Asperger's, is that you're going to realize that the world as you experience it is only one way of experiencing it.
Yes.
Because some things for her could be too loud. Some things a light touch to you could be painful to her.
Mm-hmm.
And her experience is as real to her as yours is to you. So when somebody could say, well, you need to learn how to cope better. And people are going to say that, and they're very well intended, but they're ignorant. And one of the things that I recommend to them is, eat a food you absolutely hate and convince yourself that you like it.
Right.
It's not going to work because your nervous system tells you, ew. Her nervous system tells her too loud.
Yes.
So we need to honor that.
Yes. She's a little one who didn't eat solids until she was a year old, where normally it's 4 months, 6 months, because we would put food on her lip and she would gag. Now, we were just on a sailing trip and we were eating crab legs and she could not eat. Because just looking at, and it's not something that she just makes up. It's not dramatic. It is just who she is. And we have to work with that. We have to accept it and then just support her the way we can.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Quite maybe there's someone listening now who has a child who struggles with something like this and we're turning some light bulbs on, or someone experiences things like this themselves and can give themselves a break, just knowing that this is who they are and it's all right.
And it's who you are in all of your quirkiness that is going to differentiate you from other people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why putting yourself out there fully in your full humanity is going to attract people to you, because they're not going to think that, oh, I'm not worthy of this person because they're so successful, because they're so much smarter. They're going to see, you know what, this is another human being. This is somebody I can talk to, somebody that I can relate to. And I found that draws more people to me than the most clever sales copy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Sales copy those are just words.
Mm-hmm.
It's not you. They need to get to know you and see that they can relate to you and that you will be empathetic to them. So what are one or two pieces of your best advice to someone who's struggling, with ADHD, dyslexia, other conditions right now? Now, we've touched on this a little bit, but what are the two most common pieces of advice that you find you're giving to your clients that they can take action on now?
Well, one thing that is just my meta belief is that we're all in this together.
Yes.
And back to the puzzle piece metaphor, you are not meant to be a jack of all trades. You are a specialist. Mm-hmm. The things that you suck at that are required to run a business, you find people that can help you or people you can delegate to.
Yes.
That's absolutely necessary. Mm-hmm. And if you believe that you're too good to ask for help, that's a pride issue that you need to spend some time dealing with, because it's going to sabotage you.
Yes.
So that's the first thing. The second thing is about the belief systems. Anything that you say that you can't do, I ask them to challenge that decision, challenge that belief. Because the reality is you can get any result that you want. You may have to partner with somebody else and share the success, which is fine, but you can get the result. Mm-hmm. You know, the people that say can't are the ones that believe that if it's all on my shoulders, it can't get done.
Right.
Yeah, because a lot of things aren't meant to be done by one person.
That's right.
They're meant to be done in a pair or a team. But you can absolutely get the results. So think in those terms.
Yes. If you say you can't, you can't. I think there's a saying out there that's very similar to that.
Yeah, Henry Ford.
Yeah.
Whether you say you can or whether you say you can't, you're right.
Yes, that's right. Thank you for, I'm doing terrible with my paraphrasing and quoting today. I should really write some of these down.
Hey, that's why you got me. We're a team in this, Meredith.
One of my favorite quotes of all time, and this is very fitting in this conversation, Brian, is Roosevelt said that comparison is the thief of joy.
Amen.
Yes. Yes. And once we can catch ourselves comparing, then I think that's a very hefty step or move toward finding a more fulfilled life.
Yeah, anything that you say in your own mind that tells you that you're not good enough does not serve you. Get rid of it. That's
right. Yeah, it does not serve. It doesn't protect. It doesn't do anything for us at all. It can be a lot of work to rewire our brains around that. And change is hard. I mean, physically, it can even be hard. Just changing our brain around certain paradigms, beliefs, whatever's in there. But it's so worth it.
It absolutely is worth it.
Yeah. Well, Brian, it's been a fantastic conversation. Thank you so much. I can't wait to get this episode out and inspire so many people to just get out there, stop comparing, and do what they can do.
And thank you. This was a lot of fun.